Hello again. Today we are kind of go through the first of 3 video sessions that are going to extend our knowledge and understanding of information processing. So far we've looked at 2 key models, Baddeley and Hitch's working memory model and Whiting's model in the last session. We've also looked a lot at information going in. So we've looked at the senses, visual and auditory and proprioception. We've looked at information just entering in terms of perception and how we process stimuli. But what we're going to concentrate more so over the next 3 sessions is essentially the response and how we select the response and the factors that are involved in selecting that response. In particular today, we're going to look at time, okay, the time it takes to produce a response, to select a response, and the factors that affect that. Now, in doing so, it may be, certainly to begin with, we're going to revisit some old terms that you potentially are already familiar with from GCSE, but potentially we might have to refigure some of those. Now, one of those, to begin with, is reaction time. Now, no doubt, I'm sure at some point during your school career, you would have been involved in an experiment where somebody holds a ruler over your hand here, in between your finger and thumb. They let go of it and you grab hold of it, you measure your score in centimetres, and that gives you your reaction time. Well, actually that's incorrect for us, okay? That's not what reaction time is. Reaction time is basically the time taken from the presentation of the stimulus to the beginning of the movement, okay? So just think about that again. The presentation of the stimulus, so the time taken from the presentation of the stimulus to the start of the movement. So essentially when we detect a stimulus to when we begin to respond. So what that is saying is it's reaction time is the time it takes for us to make a decision, okay? Not the time take to complete the whole response. It's just the time taken to make a decision. So just have that in your heads now, and it may be that you've had to reconfigure that, but reaction time is the time taken from the presentation of the stimulus to the start of the movement. So the next part to that, actually to extend that, is we have movement time. A movement time is the time taken from the beginning of the movement to the end of the movement, to its completion. Okay, movement time is the time taken from the beginning of the movement to its completion, to the end of the movement. So that potentially putting those 2 things together, you would have envisaged as reaction time, but it isn't. The 2 together equal response time. So response time is the time taken from the presentation of the stimulus, from the detection of a stimulus to the end of the movement. So it's really important that we understand those key terms. All right. Now, obviously, there are different factors that affect that. Okay, and we need to consider those at the moment. But there are certainly, this element here is really, really important to us. The speed at which we can select a response. Okay, at this moment, I'm not too concerned about the response itself and the time it takes to complete the movement, because obviously different movement patterns require different times. I'm more concerned with recognizing the time it takes. Now, we are going to look at the factors that go into that, and just to consider this at the moment, that you might want to do a little bit later, consider a kind of a normal pack of cards. Okay, and obviously you've got 2 different colors. Okay, we've got reds and we've got blacks. All right, we've also got 4 suits. Okay, so we've got clubs, we've got spades, we've got hearts, we've got diamonds. And within those suits, we could also split into picture cards and number cards. If we said an ace was a number card, a 1. So here's an interesting activity for you to do, to have a look at one of the key factors we're going to explore in a second, how it affects your reaction time and then ultimately your response time, is I want you to do 3 different tasks. Actually, we'll do 4. First one, time yourself. How quickly is it? How quickly can you deliver a 4-pack cards like this just into one pile? Then I want you to time how quickly you can deliver the same pack of cards into 2 bars, a black one and a red one. Then I want you to time how quickly you can deliver a pack of cards into its 4 suits. And then I want you to see how long it takes for you to deliver a pack of cards not only into its 4 suits, but to split each suit into pictures and to numbers. And what hopefully you'll start to see are some of the things we're going to discuss as we go through this session. Now, key elements here is that we have to consider the amount of stimulus or the amount of stimuli and the amount of choice that we have. And when you do that particular activity, and I would have implored you to stop the video and have a go at it, what you should have found is actually, as you've gone through the different activities and as you've gone through the complexity level, you would have found that it was taking you far longer to split the cards into 8 piles, not only their suits but actually splitting the suits as well. And essentially that comes about because we're increasing the number of stimuli and we're increasing the number of responses. So when we have reaction time, we can actually split reaction time into 2 components. Simple reaction time and choice. So an example of simple reaction time was simply just putting the cards down in one pile, okay, where essentially we have one stimulus and one possible response. Now, okay, you're not going to use that as an example in your exam, but what could you use? Well, one of the most obvious choices within sport is the start of 100 metres, or indeed any race, whether it be swimming or athletics, any distance race, okay, where what you have is a gun, and when the gun goes off, you run. You're going to be a pretty poor 100-metre runner if you're choosing how to respond to the gun. If you believe you have a choice, you've got one choice if you're going to do well within 100 metres, is as soon as that gun goes off, you're going to run. Now, the thing about choice is that actually what we start to see is an increase in the number of stimuli or an increase in the number of responses. Okay, so if I give you an example, let's take something like badminton. Okay, the game of badminton. There are a number of stimuli in badminton because my opponent can choose to play a number of different shots, which I have to respond to. That's in the first instance, so that's a stimuli. Okay, so the shuttle coming back over at a certain angle, at a certain pace, that creates different stimuli. So it could have been a smash, it could have been a drop shot, could have been a high clear, could have been a low net shot, whatever it might be. So that's the stimuli. But equally, as well as responding to that stimuli, I have a number of choices in my response in what shot I choose to play. So I don't just keep playing the same shot all the time. I might respond with a net shot, a low net shot, with another low net shot, or equally, I might respond with an underarm clear. So I'm starting to have a number of responses to this stimuli. So that's what we mean by choice. Now, as we increase the number of choices in both in our response, and we increase the number of stimuli that we've got to respond to, then reaction time increases. Okay, we increase our reaction time because obviously there's more information processing time. We take longer selecting the response. And when we come to the next session, we're going to concentrate on actually how we can improve the speed at which we select our response. But we'll look at that a little bit later. Now, if we just concentrate on choice reaction time at the moment, remember the increased number of stimuli and the increased number of choices, the increased number of responses will increase our reaction time. Okay. Now, there's a specific law that I need you to be aware of. Okay, as regards that. Okay, and it's known as Hicks law. Okay, so if I've got on this side here, I'm just going to put reaction time down there. If I put reaction time here and I put number of stimuli, choice at the bottom. Okay, so if I put a number of stimuli or choice alternatives or something like that, so number of choices, the number of responses, the number of stimuli, what I see actually is I see the time it takes increasing. As it gets to a certain point, it begins to plateau, but essentially what Hicks' law says is, as we increase the number of stimuli, as we increase the number of choices to that stimuli, so the number of responses, our reaction time increases. Okay, we take longer to select our response. Okay, so with that in mind, and those basic definitions there for you, I want you to go back to your worksheets and have a look at those questions and give them a go based on what we've done here. And then we can have a look at part 2.